ressenti partout.
What is going on, Jerk Faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. Yes, we are back. We're back live, and we do have a show. We do have quite the show for you tonight.
We always have quite the show.
What was that?
We always have quite the show.
Yes, we always have quite the show for you guys in store, even though it only came together in the last 5 minutes. Because that's how we roll here on the Circle of Jerks podcast.
Well, I will say this, a lot of times, like, throughout the week, I'm thinking about, like, what can I, I'm always thinking about, like, Tuesday, like, what can we talk about on Tuesday? And I started talking to you today, obviously, about it, but I've been thinking about it for about a week or so.
So we do put forth an effort, but it doesn't coalesce until the very last second. But if you saw the title for tonight's show, you know what's in the pipeline. We have our movie review to end our Charlton Heston month with of course probably one of his most iconic roles in Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I would say pretty darn close to his most iconic role.
Yes, and with two topics lined up. Kind of more, not much kind of current events, but not nothing. It's more cultural stuff.
Events. Cultural events.
Yeah, cultural events. Very good. Very good. Yes. So all this, in your favorite hour and a half of YouTube live streaming.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Oh man, dude, I don't know why. I know why, but I'm beat.
I can see it a little bit in you. So, how was your week, Andy?
It was cool until Sunday, and then we had like that marathon recording session for the main podcast.
Yeah, it ran a lot longer than I expected.
Yeah, and and it was no one's fault really. It was just one of those situations where we're having too much fun, and we just kind of lost track of the time. And what was that?
I know I slept until probably about noon or so on Monday.
Damn. I wish I could. I don't know why. When I got home like around like 4:30, 4:45, and I immediately went to sleep. But like I then again woke up like around 8:30, which is kind of when I would usually wake up. But then what is it? Then I fell back asleep for another 2 hours, and then I woke up at 10 o'clock. But yeah, just Monday was just not fun for me. Having well, at least you got to sleep until 12.
Well, I probably would have slept longer, but I woke up because I woke up really hungry, and I was like, oh shit, that's right, I didn't really eat. Because Daniel went to go grab some McDonald's for us, and then of course they didn't have the McRibs, so I ended up getting nothing.
Oh, that's right.
And it's like, so I was like, God damn it.
I wonder if he went through drive-through.
Probably. I would assume so.
Right. Oh yeah, because then that would make sense why he didn't call you and say, "Hey, they're out of McRibs. What else do you want?"
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And then I didn't really kind of realize what the hell time it was, and so it's just like, it was too late to do anything. So I just went to sleep and then woke up. It's like I was so hungry. But,
although, oh man, I should have told you this before we started, but a little bit of bad news. The Brandon episode. We're gonna be shorter than what we recorded.
Darn.
Yeah, so we are gonna lose some content.
All right. Yeah,
And unfortunately, it's the alternate, or it's the made up sites.
Oh no.
We are gonna lose a bit of that, or a sizable portion.
Darn.
Yeah.
That was good material.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, luckily for us, that where it gets kind of cut off and then comes back in, I was able to do a lot more with it than the last one, with Christina and Stephanie.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I mean, that's something.
Yeah. Yeah, because that one, the Christina and Stephanie episode, man, it was really bad, because it's like no one like stopped. It's just like they just kind of kept going, and so like they started an anecdote, and then like we lost the entire context, and then the punchline. It's like, great.
Yeah, that was it was because you had updated some stuff, and it kind of reset to like some a different setting for the
Right.
camera or something like that, and it just that's hopefully we can get that episode refilmed at some point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping for sometime maybe in mid to late November at the earliest.
Yeah, we'll keep at it.
Yeah. Because again,
I know it's kind of like getting all.
Yeah, and I realize, we're not gonna capture lightning in a bottle again, but
we'll find the time to merge back together at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, just I've been this past week, it's, dealing with not directly dealing with the fires, but my running group that meets on Thursdays, we weren't. Well, I mean, we still went running, but we weren't able to go running in our usual spot, because a fire had broken out really close by to the route that we usually run.
Oh yeah, there's and I think there's another one that just popped up near the Skirball Museum.
Right. Yeah, they're calling it the Getty Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the like kind of like what are the odds? But there's actually video footage of the inciting incident of a tree branch. Yeah, a tree branch falling on a telephone pole, which causes it to spark and arc, and then it caused kind of the sparks to rain down, and that's what caused the fire.
Yikes!
Yeah, it was from somebody's dash cam, like on the
on
the 405, like at that time. So it's kind of like unlikelihood of unlikelihoods, but there actually is evidence that this was just kind of like an accident. No malicious, no malicious intent, or no human, no real human involvement with this fire.
Well, I mean it's sad. It sucks that the fire's happening, but I'm kind of glad it's not like human involved.
Right? Yeah, it's just an unfortunate accident, and I think thoughts and prayers, y'all, because tonight and into tomorrow is when the Santa Anas are kicking up again, and they're talking about it being like the worst it's been. Not just in years, not just in this year, but in years. Like they're talking about like almost like hurricane level or hurricane strength winds.
Oh, yikes!
Yeah.
Man, that's gonna suck at work today, or when that starts happening.
Yeah. So everybody, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Well, all right. Should we? Where do we want to start, Andy?
Before we jump into it, I just heard on the news that LeBron was sent out a taco truck for the firefighters because the fire is happening kind of close to his house.
Well, I mean, it's nice of him.
Yeah. Although I do kind of see a dual purpose in it, because the latest kind of commotion about some things that he said that made him look like a jackass.
Yeah, it's like throw a little extra water on my house.
Yeah. Or no, it's just kind of like trying to like ingratiate some like goodwill towards him. It's like, oh look, I'm a nice guy. I'm but providing tacos for the firefighters, and it's like,
I will say this about LeBron, like as much as he puts his foot in his mouth and says a lot of stupid things,
mm-hmm.
he does occasionally throw his money at places where he actually does a lot of good for certain communities. Like didn't he like start up didn't he like donate a ton of money to like Cleveland or whatever for like their school system?
Yeah. Well,
Like
no, he built his own school.
yeah, that's right. Then
He built his
it's
own
like and he
school.
actually and it's like that's I think that's actually pretty awesome.
Right. Yeah.
And
All the top of the line equipment. New carpets, new tile, new whiteboards, new computers, new televisions. So yeah, I mean, I'll give LeBron that he genuinely believes in doing like uh, good good things, and he does, and like you said, he does he oftentimes does use his money for good things.
yeah, he's like I said, I don't think of him as like I don't think he's a terrible person. I just think he's a basketball player who opens his mouth sometimes and says some really dumb stuff. But I actually
Mm-hmm.
think he is like somewhat of a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And like he does put his money where his mouth is. I'll give him that.
Right. Yeah, but I never liked LeBron.
I've never liked him either.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like I said,
Yeah.
yeah. Now he's on the Lakers, so I'm kind of like I'm torn. It's like, do I?
I know exactly because Lakers are my team. Lakers are my team, and I want to root for the Lakers. But you got like, you have this jackass on board where it's like, one minute he's saying like, oh, it's all everyone's responsibility to talk and speak out against injustice and blah blah blah.
I will say
Until his wallet's gonna be affected, and it's like, oh yeah, all y'all just shut up and just dribble, It's like
yeah.
you can't have it both ways. It's like
Right.
either
I mean,
either
Kobe,
Laura either what's it like that Ingram woman
well,
what's
yeah,
it
Laura Ingram,
yeah Laura
who,
Ingram, either she's right or either she's right or you're wrong or you're right and she's wrong. What you have to
yeah,
decide.
I was gonna say, I mean, Kobe was kind of an asshole too, but like, I never doubted his like, he was doing everything he could to make the Lakers a winner.
Right.
It's like, and I don't think he ever really. He stuck his foot in his mouth like from his own self, but like I don't think he ever made some of the dumb remarks that like LeBron has made. It's
Right. I mean, fortunately for Kobe, though, like nothing, like none of, like all this, like kind of, racial, BS was happening when he was playing. Most of the things that he had to deal with were more of a personal nature, like
right. Yeah.
kind of like the
It was
rape, like the rape allegation, and his marriage, like kind of, or his marriage falling, on the rocks, or his beef with
the Shaq.
Shaq. It was more like an internal thing, like within Kobe. Kobe's like near orbit. Not
Yeah.
he never
It
had
was
to
all
deal with.
basketball. It was all basketball and personal oriented. It was never like on. I don't think I ever heard Kobe ever talk about political issues, anything like that, because I don't think he gave a shit about any of that.
Right, exactly.
And I kind of honestly I like that because I don't.
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too. I
think
mean, I just want to see a guy, a guy who's at the top of his physical game, and put a ball in a hole or run a ball across the field.
I don't go to my sports for politics. I
Right.
go to the sports because I find them a fascinating, and I'm watching something that I can't do that, but I can enjoy someone at the top, their physical peak, and doing something that I've never seen before. Like one of the famous lines that in NASCAR, from one of the broadcasters it was common men doing uncommon things, and that's kind of how I see sports in general. It's common men doing uncommon things because it's what some of the physical aspect, some of the stuff, guys hitting balls 500 feet out of the ballpark, or I mean, jumping from the free throw line to dunk the ball in basketball, or anything that's happening in hockey. My God, it's it's kind of that's why I like sports.
Indeed. All right. Yeah, let's get into the topics for tonight. And these are both 10 topics that that you brought up. So why don't I let you take the lead, as it were.
All right. Well, let's start. Well, since since we're talking about sports, I'll start in with our sort of some happenings in the World Series. Not necessarily on the field, because the games have been pretty amazing, to be honest.
Okay.
But it's more behind the scenes stuff that's going on. That kind of the idea, politics getting involved in sports when they don't really need to be there. You have there was an incident with the Houston Astros, who made it to they're the American League team that made the World Series, and one of their executives, I don't remember I forget his name and his title, but after they won the World Series, this executive, from what I heard, is that he was saying, like, I'm so glad that we got fucking Ozuna, or something along those lines. And Ozuna is the closer that they got in a trade last year from the Toronto Blue Jays. Because one thing that the Houston Astros needed is they didn't really have a lot of good late inning relief pitching.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy helped them, and it was part of the reason why they didn't make the World Series last year, is because they didn't really have good relief pitching, and they didn't have Osuna last year, even though they traded for him because he had been on. I guess there was some domestic violence dispute that was going on with him, and the details on that are a little fuzzy. But from what it sounds like, is that it wasn't really anything significant. Like, I don't think he beat his wife or anything. It was just kind of I forgot what exactly happened. And so baseball, I think in the court and legally, nothing really happened. Like, I think he was acquitted or whatever. But baseball, it doesn't matter. Like, they think they threw like a 75 game suspension on him because he was just involved in it. So they
right. So the optics outweighed the actual legal standing or the legal
exactly.
decision.
And that's happened on a lot of occasions. There was the same thing with Aroldis Chapman a number of years ago, and that was the reason why the Dodgers didn't get him, is because we don't want to be involved with that. It's like, come on, they arrested him, but it turned out that there was nothing happened. That was what legally came up, and because it's the optics, so the Dodgers kind of looked woke, but in reality it's nothing happened, so you lost out on arguably the greatest late inning relief pitcher because of that. So whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened with Osuna. And apparently, it was two female reporters that were there that felt that this executive was looking the way that you could tell this is probably written by a woman. where it's like he looked right into our eyes, and he's it was very very direct and very it's kind of.
Wait, was the reporter interviewing this executive?
No, he was just excited because the team because Osuna was the reason that a part of the reason why they won that game against the Yankees, because he kept them in the ball game late for them to hit this walk-off home run to make it to the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, of the guys, like, because I think he was part of that. He was part of the team that got that, was able to get this guy in a trade, and so he's pumped up. It's like, yeah, I'm so glad we got Osuna. Like, that's, and at least that's how I see it as. But apparently, these female reporters like heard that, and it's like, you obviously don't care about domestic violence, and there was all this. Oh my God, you should have like seen on Twitter just the. And the reason why I call it bullshit, because, and we've talked about this several occasions, I hate when like you only hear one side of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't hear any, like, it's kind of this kangaroo court on Twitter that it's like you only hear one side and you don't hear like the actual, like, what actually happened, because this seems like you're only hearing this one side, we don't hear anything else, and then it's like, oh well, now he's fired. It's like, what? And it's like, so that's where I start to call bullshit, possibly, like,
Mm-hmm.
where it's maybe he was saying it to them, or like, or I'm, he obviously said that. There's no dispute on that. But was it actually said at these female reporters, or was the guy just excited that his team made it to the World Series? Because it's hard to do. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
so many.
It's an incredible feat.
There's 30 teams every year trying to make it to the World Series, and only 2 make it. And yeah, it's like, so I'm kind of, that's where I'm like thinking it's probably out of excitement. And does the guy like love domestic violence? Obviously not. I mean, what crazy person?
Yeah, I know. It's just like, see, and that's a problem with women. And that's why no one takes women seriously.
I just that's why like this stuff kind of bothers me, because it's like, listen, like, had the guy like actually like beat up his wife, it's like he shouldn't be playing baseball. Like, if that really happened,
Mm-hmm.
it's like he shouldn't be playing baseball, all that stuff. I'm fine with that. But the thing is, like, nothing happened. It's like there was just nothing, and so you can't. So the guy like should be considered innocent at this point.
Well, I mean, if, like, wait, was he charged? Like, was he formally
it was
charged?
kind of the same thing with, like, it was the same thing kind of like how it was with Chapin. Like, he was arrested, but like I don't think anything there. They didn't find any evidence of it or whatever.
Well, did it? Yeah, okay, so it didn't go beyond like the initial interview with police, right?
I think, yeah, I don't think there was any, as far as
So he never. So to everyone's knowledge, he didn't get indicted. He didn't have to stand before a judge.
as far as
No,
I know, yeah.
Yeah, no formal charges were brought against him. So then,
served no jail
so
time.
then there's no issue, and there's no issue. Like, the cops talked to him, and then what the cops heard, they were satisfied that that he didn't perform the crime that someone accused him of, and so so there was no need to take it to trial or to court. So yeah, so he's literally innocent.
Yeah.
Of any wrongdoing. He's literally innocent of wrongdoing, and yet, just because of the tinge of his involvement with law enforcement, makes him either suspicious or outright guilty.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's absolutely, utterly insane to me. It just goes to. I mean, I don't know if this reporter knew like the full, or like knew the whole story, or if she's just there just to be kind of like the token woman to go and on the field and interview, people or whatever. But if she didn't know, then then she should have done her due diligence as a journalist and know about all of the different sides, even this kind of extra that's this pretty significant thing that happened to a player. They should know. They should know about this thing, and also commonsensically, they should know that the owner or manager or whatever is not endorsing domestic violence.
Yeah, and it's like, and the thing is, like, in the scene in like the locker rooms, especially come playoff time, is trust me, everyone's amped up. We just won the American League Championship. They got the whole locker room like covered in plastic tarp.
Right, for
they're spraying champagne and beer.
Spray
And,
show.
They're celebrating it. And plus it's a guys' clubhouse too. And yes, of course, reporters are welcome there, but it's even people say like crazy things, and they're having a good old time. It's
right, like in the heat of the moment. If you're just coming in from a victory, then of course you're amped, and you're ready to kind of participate in the tradition of dousing your teammates in victory, with like champagne and beer or whatever. It's just like it's like get ready for an unfiltered view of something.
Yeah. And it's but yeah, it's just, and then I heard something else too, like after, so they fired him, right? And then after this, like there was some like article like because one of the Yankees radio announcers, she's a woman, Susan Waldman, and it's like they were talking about like Susan Waldman hasn't watched a game in the World Series since the Astros are in. It's like, well, first of all, who gives a shit? Because she is an announcer for the Yankees. Her team lost. I don't give a shit that she's she's watching World Series games or not. Why is this like a story? It's not. And she's a great announcer. I really like the Yankees radio broadcast team. Like they're really good. But I honestly don't give a shit about like her not watching World Series games. The Yankees aren't in it, so who gives a damn?
I know, like if her job is exclusively to cover the Yankees, then and then who cares if she doesn't watch the World Series, especially if the Yankees aren't in it.
Yeah, it's like it's the same thing where it's like back in like when like the Dodgers announcers like, oh, they haven't watched a game since they lost to the Nationals. Like, okay, fine, I don't care. Like the Dodgers aren't in the playoffs anymore.
Yeah, it's like, so their job is to commentate, and broadcast during when during like when the Dodgers play. It's like, yes, right. It's like, and the Dodgers are not in the World Series, correct?
But yeah, I the reason that
then therefore why do they have to make commentary about a team that they're not contractually or otherwise obligated to cover?
Right, and well, here, and what it was just meant to like it's, oh, look at this woman that's like kind of at the top of her field in sports. She's not watching the World Series, like kind of like, as like, I don't know, it's like supposed to be some sort of protest against the baseball and the Houston Astros or what. It's fucking stupid.
Whatever.
But honestly, I'm like, who gives a shit?
Yeah, if I had it my way, women would have nothing to do with sports.
Yeah, they at least don't belong in the damn, like, I don't think they really belong in the locker room, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, are we trying to avert? Are we trying to reduce the likelihoods of of Me Too events?
Well, here's the other thing too: is like, no one ever, I don't think anyone talks about this, and like with women's sports, are there male like reporters that are going into the female locker room?
That's right. Yeah, like the WNBA, like after like victory, I don't know. after a win, are male reporters allowed to go into the female locker room and like interview them?
Yeah, I don't hear about that. I don't think there'd be a riot if that happened.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there are.
I mean, nowadays all a guy has to do is merely identify as a woman, and they can't say boo.
True, but it's still the same thing. You don't hear about that story. Like, I think there would be like some like, oh, how dare they come into our locker room?
Right. Yeah, it's the constant story of how women are allowed to. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. Women are allowed to invade men's spaces, but men aren't allowed to invade women's spaces. I mean,
pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying.
I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like equality to me.
No, I'm telling you, it's about dominance, not equality. Equality happened a long time ago, and because you, like I said, with progressives, you can't stop progressing. You just, it's like, oh well, you become insatiable. Like nothing can.
Right, it's in their name. It's like progressive to progress. Like it's not just. You get to a point and you're like, okay, we're good, no more. We don't have to go. We don't have to go anymore. It's like no, it's like you have to keep going.
Yeah. So that's what was going on with the Houston Astros. I thought was kind of bullshit. And then on the flip side, the Nationals fans and Washington D.C. as a whole, I felt acted very, very shamefully. It's like, listen, you don't have to necessarily like a president or whatever. I'm pretty sure back in like 2001 when President Bush was he went to the first, I think it was to the World Series when the Yankees made it, and that was just after like the September 11th attacks and all that stuff. A ton of people didn't like President Bush, but you know what? Like they were like, it's kind of an exciting thing for a president to show up to a baseball game, and like that was a big moment, I think, for not just baseball but like the nation to heal. And recently we as a nation, we kind of had another big win with the kind of getting rid of the kind of the last of the ISIS leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, and put some salt to the ground to that group so that they don't come back.
Right.
And so so President Trump goes to Game 5 of the World Series, which is in Washington D.C., and there at least should be some some sort of applause, or at best nothing. I mean, it's like but they're booing him, and after like this news came out, they're booing him. They're all of them are shouting, lock him up and all this stuff. And honestly, I felt, like I said, I'm not here to like say like you can say what you will about President Trump, but like I don't think he deserved that kind of treatment.
Well, if nothing else, like someone who holds the office of president doesn't deserve that.
No.
The man notwithstanding, someone who has or is currently inhabiting the office of president doesn't deserve that kind of perception. And I don't care, regardless of party either. It's funny because this is the literal the literal cancer analogy. Back in it was what is Trump could cure cancer and people would still boo him.
Oh, they would talk about how cancer's actually done a lot of good, and it's like, what?
Right, population control, and it's like, what?
Or if you had or if he came out as pro puppy, people would start kicking puppies.
No, but that is literally that example. Those two examples. Because Trump, like, he gave the order to take out Baghdadi and his one of his lieutenants, and people are, and like the obituary in the Washington Post, it changed from, like, terrorist leader, taken out in raid to austere Islamic scholar, commits suicide, and it's just like, go fuck yourselves.
Did you see some of the parodies of the
Oh yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. There
Marco
was like, there was like the Hitlers, the
obituary?
Stalins. My favorite one was, of course, the Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
It's like austere Sith scholar.
Jeez, it's just. I mean, this is. I just felt like they're kind of both teams like the part of me was thinking like what now I was already kind of like rooting for Houston in a way because I didn't want the Nationals to win because they beat my team, but now it just gives me extra fodder. It's like for all the if I had to choose like I felt like Houston did actually if both teams could lose at this point I'd be fine with it, but it's. Someone has to be a World Series winner.
But it'd just be all the more satisfying if the Nationals lost.
Yeah, I'd be alright with that.
Yeah.
But
that's why I titled it the way it is. For this particular segment, America's Pastime with a question mark. It's like, what is it really? Is it baseball or is it Trump bashing?
Yeah, it's just I don't know, shameful events on both teams' parts. Yeah, I just it is what it is, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, like, and again, this, there's constantly comparison because there is because what is it, when Obama took out Osama, people were ready to throw him a ticker tape parade. They're ready to vote. They're ready to vote him in for a third term.
I can remember exactly when that happened. I was at a Dodger game that night, and the fucking stadium exploded in just cheers. It was crazy.
Yeah, I was at a wedding.
Yeah, you would have thought that we were in the World Series at that night. I mean, we were. It was just if the stadium went nuts, and it's like, and now like you have it's like where something also a really big deal is kind of taking out these bad guys, and there's something that should be say what you will celebrating a man's death. I don't know about that, but these are bad guys, and you think he'd at least get kind of the same treatment that Obama got,
or at least deferential treatment, where it's like, okay, he did a good thing. He eliminated ISIS leadership.
Yeah,
at least that. I'm not expecting I'm not expecting overnight converts. Trump's side, but deferential treatment at least. We could expect. That's the least we could be expecting. It's like, okay, it's like the president did took out the ISIS leadership. All right.
But nope, not what happened.
Nope,
at all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and other things in the news too.
Yes.
And I'm not really sure what to think about this either. Is Kanye West, who I'll say this: Kanye West he's an interesting man.
To say the least. To say the least.
Yeah, even back you can say even like back like 10 so years ago, he's always been a very interesting character. And people have called him a genius. They've called him crazy, what have you. But recently he's kind of been I guess I don't know if you call it a conversion or whatever, but he's come out as a Christian in recent weeks or so. I guess I don't know if he would have called himself a Christian beforehand, but he's definitely I won't say playing the part, because I can't make that judgment.
Right.
But he's called himself, he's kind of become a Christian, and he's coming out with this the new album. Was it Jesus is King? Is that was the title of it? Do you remember?
Um, I,
I think it was Jesus something. But I forget that. I have not personally listened to his the new album.
I think it is. Yeah, Jesus is King. That's it's one of the title tracks, and it's the title of the album.
Okay, yeah. So that was the album that came out, and yeah, I don't know. I don't want to put him, because I'm not going to put him on a pedestal, or because if he is a brand new convert to Christianity, which is a great thing, awesome. If that's true, I'm super excited. Not only for mainly for him, because I believe in Christianity. I think it's the right religion, and all that. I believe it to be true, and the fact that he is on that path, that's awesome. But what I fear is that a lot of the Christian conservative side of things is that they're gonna kind of make him this figure, and instead of letting him, giving him kind of guidance and help, and kind of you know helping him to mature as a believer. And a lot of times that people like new converts, especially in the world that Kanye lives in, there's times where you still have that old nature in you, and it's easy to fall back into old patterns, not because you're not saved or anything, but it's something that does happen. It's like we're always in a constant battle to live up to our salvation, in a sense. And yeah, like I said, I'm not going to question his conversion. I think it's genuine. That's not my place to question someone's salvation. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this, Andy? Like, do you think it's what do you
Well,
think
I
about it?
mean, I've been kind of watching the kind of, I guess, the evolution of Kanye West. Um, he had, I think he was testing out the waters a bit with his album before, the songs about Pablo, I think it was called.
I,
Um,
uh,
where in that album there were some undertones of of Christianity, or the Christian faith.
right.
But I think, yeah, this one is like very much, of course, with this new one, it's very explicit. You know, just
Yeah,
going
there's
by
no doubt about
the title.
right.
And yes, of course, it's just because someone says they line up, they line up behind who I line up behind, doesn't necessarily mean you know doesn't necessarily mean I just I mean, I know as Christians, we're called to take in all people, but just the pragmatist in me is just like I'm just gonna keep I'm just gonna keep watching. I'm gonna see how this develops.
Yeah,
Um,
right. And I'm kind of the same way too. It's like, well, let's see how it plays out.
mm-hmm,
Um, I mean, obviously, for someone of his stature, if
mm-hmm,
he does mature as a believer as time goes on, I think that's kind of having someone him being uh, a spokesman out to the culture
mm-hmm,
of some of because he's arguably one of the most famous people out there today.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a lot of even people who don't necessarily listen to his music, they know who Kanye West is.
Right.
Uh, and for from what I understand, his album's not just some poppy Christian album or anything. It's there's actually some from what I've heard, or I've had people talk about what the lyrics are in there. It actually sounds like there's some substance to it. At least it's not just
Right.
some.
Like he's been saying like this, this album is, uh, very very heavily influenced by the Gospels, and so
Right.
so there's a big infusion of the Word, in his music, and I haven't listened to it yet. I am, I will eventually, but in preparation to talk about this, I did watch the Big Boy interview that he did. Um, and it was there's some things that I personally didn't enjoy about but mostly about how he interviewed as opposed to the substance. But he was like he seemed very frantic, but that's not that troubling to me because I know a lot of new believers or returning believers who have finally gotten their own like personal revelation or the kind of the road to Damascus kind of situation, and they get that initial jolt and fire and vigor and zeal about the gospel and about God and Jesus
Right.
and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So that is very so his energy in the interview seemed fairly reminiscent of that. Um, but it was weird because like the way he interviewed was he didn't like if I'm Kanye and Big Boy's off to my left, a lot. I mean, kind of the camera angles made it look like he was kind of talking out this way and not really engaging in Big Boy. He was
It
asking the
was edited.
question.
It was edited really weird, right? Like that
Right.
whole interview.
And I don't, and yeah, and I don't want to, and I don't think that they inverted the image because I was still able to read his shirt, which had, which was, basically advertisement for his new album, King Jesus,
Yeah.
or Jesus is King.
It wasn't some like rock bottom like interview with like Homer Simpson, but it was just I felt like it was edited a little weird that whole
Right.
interview.
Well, yeah, like there was like that one question like that he and he kind of came in big, right away, which that doesn't sound natural. Nobody starts
No,
off
no.
nobody starts off big, especially the way that Big Boy asked him the question. It was more, he like it was, it just doesn't make sense. He was like, "Oh, do you fear like losing your audience or whatever or your fans?" And then he just came in big like, "No, dog, I fear God." He's like right away, just like that's not
Yeah,
natural.
that's where I like it's like something like I think there was something that was like he was starting to build up to something, and
Mm-hmm.
like that was kind of like the end piece, but that's where they like edited it, where like they cut right into that
Right?
part,
They
and
basically they cut the. Uh, it's like showing Evil Knievel making the jump, but not the moments leading up to it. Like they didn't show Evil Knievel on the ramp.
right,
So,
exactly.
but I mean, I kind of understand them fearing Kanye because he's so influential. Um,
That's that's the part of like that. That's the thing. Like I said, if his conversion is genuine, someone of his stature can be really like a huge influence for Christianity, which you could. I think that's a great thing, to be honest. Um,
but I'm wary because I don't believe Christianity should have celebrity.
yeah, I would agree with that too.
I mean, regardless of the possible converts he can bring in or like the tension that someone of Kanye's stature can bring to Christianity, I don't think celebrity belongs in Christianity. I don't think celebrity is compatible with Christianity because the only one that we are supposed to turn our eyes toward is God.
as long as it's like something where it's like Kanye is constantly not pointing at himself, but like always, pointing in
Right.
the right direction.
If he's reflecting, and from the interview that I saw with Big Boy, I think that's what he's doing. Then okay,
Yeah,
I don't foresee a problem yet. But the moment it becomes about Kanye, then I'll be like, then I'll have to, if he claims himself to be a Christian, then he's my brother, and I will have to, keep him, hold him to account.
right. And here's a couple of things of my thoughts. Like for me, it's like, even if he is someone that like this is not necessarily a farce, but he's a young Christian who's gonna make mistakes. But if someone of his stature like gets people to like, what is this gospel thing, and then they actually read about it and are prompted to Christianity, even if he like is kind of goes back to some of his old ways and like it makes mistakes, the good has still been done. He's still, he can still, God can still use him for, um, use him for good. And the other thing though, if his conversion is genuine, like what I always urge any young believers to do is like, listen, like, I go back to there. One of my life verses comes from Peter in one of his epistles, talking about like always be able to give a reason for why you have the hope that you do in Christ. And for me, that that requires you actually have to know your Bible. Like you got to take time to read it. You got to pray,
Right.
and
That's the apologist mantra right there.
yeah, because when the time comes for you to share the gospel with others, they don't care about what like Kanye West says, or they don't care about what your church says. They don't care about like so and so. It's about why you came to believe in Christ, and what has changed, and that takes knowing the Bible. You got to know, and we might have different theological beliefs on things, um, and but as long as obviously we all believe in Jesus Christ and the gospel, and the other stuff is just like because how I came to Christianity is probably very different from you. And it's definitely different from a lot of the friends that I have who,
Right. Different for Kanye.
yeah, and it's like people have come from like rock bottom, like they should be dead, but like they're not. I came to it more through like the logic and reason,
Mm-hmm.
and
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
everything else that's out there. It's the only one that made sense to me.
Hmm.
Uh,
Right, and it's interesting because that's what I appreciate about Owen Benjamin, because that's how he came to become a Christian.
yeah,
It wasn't like some like supernatural event where he saw a vision of Jesus or whatever. It's just like he was he looked at the world, he looked at his own life, and it was he was in the Hollywood system, and
he constantly talks about the logos.
you're right, the word. Um, and he saw correlations of like what Jesus was talking about, like if you live a certain way, then your life is going to reflect it. And he saw, and it was all, and everything that in his life, and like in Hollywood and in the system, mirrored like all the bad things that were going to happen.
Yeah, and like I said, everyone kind of comes to Christianity in a very God brings us in a myriad of ways. Like I said, some people are in the gutter, drinking themselves to death, and then Christ found them. Some people come to it through logic and reason. Um, some people are kind of they are in the church their whole lives, and it's just like they as they have all like the stories there, and as they get older they kind of, it's like I gotta make a decision on this, like whether do I actually believe this or not, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of wrestle with stuff. So yeah, everyone kind of comes to church and Christianity in very different ways.
Word.
And so my hope is that this is a genuine thing. That as long as he's constantly like reflecting God's light and not pointing towards himself, then awesome. So like I said, yeah, like you, I'm tentative. Like we'll see how it plays out.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that I want, I'm waiting for him to fail. I'm saying like I want, like, I'm not saying I want him to fail. I want to see him get to the finish line.
Right. I want to see not necessarily for me or for anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
For him, I want to see him grow and be kind of grow closer to Christ and use the gifts and talents and things that he has available to him.
Right. The
Because
opportunities.
he has a lot available to him to be able
Right.
to do a lot of good for God if that's the path that he's going. And I
Yeah.
hope that that's what happens, and that he grows strong in his knowledge of the word and grows as a believer. That's
Right.
my hope.
Right, because I don't want, because like the parable of the sower, I don't want him to be, I don't want him to be the seed that gets thrown. I don't want him to be the shallow soil, essentially.
Right. Because the thing is, like, I don't necessarily, as a believer, I don't necessarily need Kanye for anything. Like
Right. Yeah.
we've already won. It's like it's like the only thing I care about is like it's like, hey, what how can you it's like contributing to God himself. Like, are you gonna be able to, are you growing as a believer yourself, and are you sharing the gospel? That's it. That's all I care about.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I don't want it. I don't want this. I mean, I pray that it's, this is not just, this flash in the pan. Like, he gets like this quick growth, but because he's not in deep soil, the fervor, the passion dies out quickly.
Yeah. Hopefully
And
it's not
so,
the shallow rocky soil or the thorns.
right, right, because that's another thing. It was, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, or what is it? It'd be stupid for the left not to be afraid of Kanye because you know he, because not only is he influential, but his family's influential. In that, two of the most influential people in the planet got together. And and I don't know about Kim. I don't know about Kim. Uh, they profess to be Christians, and I know they are sometimes seen at Hillsong Church in downtown or in LA. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what her status is. I don't know what her faith journey is. But yeah, the left should be afraid because if nothing, Kanye and Kim are the kind of sneaky. No, right, but they're also this. They're kind of this sneaky example of the classic nuclear family. Which the left is constantly trying to destroy. But that's why I don't know if you're familiar with that HG TV show Fixer Upper. Yeah, with Chip and Joanna Gaines, yeah, and how they were like attacked because like the pastor had said something, not PC about gay marriage, and it was no wonder that they were attacked because they were the model of the nuclear family, man, wife, children, and
Right.
and interestingly enough, Kanye does exemplify the nuclear family. He has a wife, and he has kids.
Right.
He's a strong male leader. And even though his wife is powerful and influential in her own right, I mean I you know because my sister watches it, I occasionally get pick watch clips or little snippets of Keeping Up with Kardashians, and it seems like they have a more or less traditional marriage
Yeah.
where like the man is the head of the household, the woman is in charge of the kids, and not that that's the only thing she does because she runs like her multimedia like empire and everything like that. But I mean, more or less, they're the example of a nuclear family.
Yeah.
And and yeah, if I were the left, I'd be shaking in my boots. Because if and especially the message that he's giving, not just the about the gospel and about Jesus, but about stop being a slave mentality and have a victor's mentality, and think for yourself, and don't just do something because someone tells you a thing about somebody else. Have your own opinion about it.
Right.
And so coupled with those two things, like the message of you know think for yourself, be a victor, not a victim. And the TV show that shows him being the family man, being the patriarch of his family, having a loving wife, having children, having making the world a better place for his children. That gotta terrify the left.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and yeah, there's going to be yeah, especially if this is a true conversion. I mean, that's Satan is going to throw a lot of crap at him.
I know. I mean, yeah, just hopefully he's strong. Hopefully, he'll be able to endure.
I think that's
Because
one of the and see, I think that's actually one of the talents that Kanye does have, though, is he is a very determined guy, and I think he, if like I said, if he keeps his eyes focused on the on God, I think he'll stand.
right. Um, it's interesting in that interview with Big Boy, he was saying how, I was the guy that said that George Bush didn't care about black people, and because I wore a red hat, they still call me coon.
Yeah.
It was just like it was funny how profound that was. Like I was the guy that said, I told I talked shit about a Republican president, and now that I'm for another Republican president, I'm now a traitor. I'm now like the enemy, or I'm somehow a traitor to my skin color.
Right. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. Yes, but many prayers for brother Kanye. Uh, I truly hope that his faith is sincere, and that God would use him mightily for His name.
I, yeah, definitely.
All right. I say we get into our movie review
Yeah,
and
let's do it.
wrap this up.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right. Okay. The quick synopsis for this movie. Planet of the Apes is an American science fiction media franchise consisting of films, books, television series, comics, and other media about a world in which humans and intelligent apes clash for control.
I wouldn't say forgotten franchise. That's but a lot of Star Wars gets talked about a lot more. Star Trek, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the really famous science fiction action type of movie franchises that get talked about a lot, right?
Uh huh.
Planet of the Apes to me, I think is um, should definitely be in the mix. Because you have was it this is the one that we're talking about is the very first one from 1968. It
Oh
spanned
wait.
into four other films, in that era, and then you have the well, I always kind of put the Mark Wahlberg one.
Mhm.
I kind of put that one away, and then you have the three newer ones, which are kind of technically prequels, which with
Right, but I think they
James
do
Franco.
more to broaden the mythology of
Right.
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think this is one of the great franchises. Like, because
mhm.
honestly, like none of the movies are really bad. Like, I mean, there's some that are better than others for sure. But man, I love this franchise so much.
Yeah, I just wait, let me give one more synopsis because I actually found the synopsis for the 1968 movie. Really
Okay.
quickly. Complex sociological themes run through the science fiction classic about three astronauts marooned on a futuristic planet where apes rule and humans are slaves. The stunned trio discovers that these highly intellectual simians can both walk upright and talk. They even establish a class system and a political structure. The astronauts suddenly find themselves part of a devalued species, trapped and imprisoned by the apes. Oh,
Yeah,
crazy! Rod Serling wrote the screenplay.
that makes a lot of sense. That's probably why I like it so much. Yeah, Rod
uh,
Serling was that guy was
but yeah,
amazing. He was an amazing writer.
he was. He actually was. But let me just quickly reversing, talking about the later prequel, the later trilogy that came out in the 2000s. I think it did a
Yeah.
great job of, like I said, it did a great job of expanding the mythology of the Planet of the Apes series. But and like I think one of the great things or one of the clever things that it did was explain the human mutism in the '68 movie.
Yes, that was because I had always wondered that. Like, how did like humans like kind of not devolve in a sense, but like yeah, they were definitely they were not as they had become kind of the apes, whereas the apes had become more human like.
Right? Yeah, diminished mental capacity and also mutism
Right.
was one of the traits that in the 1968 first Planet of the Apes movie came out. That's what the humans were suffering from. But then in the subsequent reboot, the kind of reboot prequel Planet of the Apes movie, they explained that as part of being the simian, the part of this, one of the symptoms of contracting the simian flu.
Right. Yeah, and that was like I said, and it really it kind of came around full circle, and it was the way like I said the last one. What was it? The what was the last movie's title? But
I think it
I put that
was
all. It was to me, it's on par with the original.
War for the Planet of the Apes.
Right, and because that came out what like 2 3 years ago now.
Uh, yeah, it came out in 2017.
Yeah, and damn that movie like that was one of the best acted movies I've seen in a while. And that like I said that I don't think it was right on par with the original.
Mm.
But yeah, no, what I like about this one too is just talking about the one from '68. Obviously, it has um, Charlton Heston, who did a great job in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but him as Commander Taylor, he was well. I guess he was the leader of the expedition.
You're right.
Um,
Yeah.
and, and all four of the members of that group, were there for different reasons. The female that was with that crew ended up dying before they arrived because like her capsule or whatever like cracked, and so
Right. There
she
was some sort of containment failure, yeah, her sleep
and
pod, was damaged, and so she had died, and then probably after No, wait. Yeah, it was probably early on because like yeah, she basically looked mummified.
Yeah, so she had been dead for some time.
Yeah.
Because but they're traveling at light speed, so while they stay similar, kind of the same age, the age, they're because they have the date when they left and like what the current Earth time should be,
Hmm.
and they traveled some like 2,000 years in the future,
Hmm.
based off of this. Um, and they were traveling at that speed for like a year and a half. So sometime within that process, um, that containment unit failed, and so she essentially kind of died in space and was mummified. But the rest of them, they were all for different reasons. Some were there for just the curiosity and like trying to find something different. Um, you have one who's trying to try to recreate, or to kind of create a new society and all this stuff. And then you have Commander Taylor, who kind of hates everybody, and he's fed up with you
Yeah,
know
he's a bit of a misanthrope.
yeah, exactly. And he's kind of like talking down to the rest of the guys, laughing at them for them holding on to the old ways.
Hmm.
And they land on this planet, and it's like we weren't supposed to be landing in water, and I don't know if like they had like some sort of idea of where they were going. um
Well,
and
I thought they were. I thought they were on their way back to Earth.
No, that's the thing. Is like they were supposedly traveling to another planet. That was the whole point, because they didn't know that they were on Earth. That
Uh,
was like that's the
well,
whole
because I
point of
thought.
like that the final scene is like, holy crap, we were on Earth all along. That was the big reveal. Like at the end, it's like, oh shit, like
No,
this
but yeah,
wasn't some.
I thought they were on their way back from like whatever mission they were supposed to accomplish.
No,
Uh,
no, because they were looking for another Earth-like planet, yes. But here's the thing: is like because they were when before they escaped the crash ship,
mhm.
they tested like, is the air breathable? Because they thought they were on another planet. Um, and so yeah, they never thought that they were on Earth.
Okay.
That
Well,
was
yeah,
that
maybe.
was why like that ending scene was such a big deal, is because it was like they travel. Commander Taylor thought, we traveled all this way, and he ended up right back where they started. And even then, like when they're at the end, they're towards the end, when they're doing the archaeology, looking in that cave with all the archaeological stuff. Yeah, they're meeting. uh they thought that there was like kind of like an alien human life that was there. And it's like, oh, this person had glasses, and they had like human dolls, all this stuff. And but they thought that like the humans there were just like another. They were humans, but they were like a kind of an alien life form.
Or
And
just like or like human like I mean
or
the
primitive
like
humans.
the odds of it happening, but like human beings evolved on this planet as well, and more or less came up created a similar civilization.
Exactly, yeah. So that's my understanding of how it came to be, and that's why like that last scene was such a big deal, and why Taylor breaks down at the end.
Hmm. Well, see, I had a different understanding of that last scene. It's more like because now informed by knowing about Taylor's misanthropic attitude is that there was a nuclear war that happened, and it's like he so all of the things that he believed humanity to be like was confirmed, and that was like the whole like you maniacs, you blew it up, you actually did it, you know
Well, and here's the other thing too
and not
is
necessarily that that he's back on Earth.
now here's the thing is because the and now that we have a whole like slew of movies to work with, right? So the start of the prequels, because the Planet of the Apes, like they have it where like the date that they set off flying, I think it was like 70 something, like it was because it wasn't 68, but like, it was like in the 70s when they
Right.
flew out.
I think it was like
So,
73 or something.
right,
Even though the movie was released in 1968, they jumped ahead 5 years.
right, and the mission that they were on, it was an experiment. Like they were doing an experiment for NASA, which obviously, but would lead them to they were going to outlive everyone else on Earth to find this new society or whatever. And there's actually no, because the first of the prequels doesn't start in 1975. It starts in, many years after that, like, some 20 or 30 years after the
Yeah, I
events
mean,
of.
yeah, the first prequel prequel movie was Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and it more or less happened in the same year that the movie released. So it was set relatively in the same year as when the movie released.
Right. So Commander Taylor had been gone for 30 years, and Commander Taylor and his team had been gone for 30 years before that. So the fact that because we
Oh no,
you know,
actually
when,
they weren't. They weren't because I remember there was a big deal because there was a newspaper clip talking about that mission and like how they were just about to take off, and then it wasn't until like the first cases of the simian flu were revealed, and then there was like another report, like there was like the headline where it was like simian flu outbreak, but then like claims like x amount of people, and then kind of on below the fold there was like shuttle mission disappears or is missing off the radar.
but but still it wasn't they weren't sent out because of the simian flu. They were sent out just for it
Right,
was
right. But I'm not. But
for a mission.
it's not that they. It's not as though I don't think it was necessarily that they were already in space for that long. So that's like a
But
weird. That's a weird kind of. That's a weird, I think,
they may have
inconsistency.
yeah, maybe they fudged with the dates a little bit, between the original and Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that they weren't like fleeing the planet for just because of the simian
True.
flu or whatever.
Okay. Fair point.
They were already gone by the time that like before this stuff happened,
Fair point.
and so they were doing space exploration essentially and testing out the light speed travel.
Okay.
And so, like I said, and so they were thinking that they were heading to some other, Earth-like planet. That was the whole point. And but through their light speed travel, Earth is getting, is aging, quite a bit.
Right. It's the whole
Whereas,
relativity thing where 6 months in space is 200 years on Earth.
right.
So yeah, because that's yeah, I think that's about when the movie starts and Taylor's like doing his log. I think that's how much time he said has passed
Yeah, because they'd been
on the
traveling
ship.
Yeah, because they'd been traveling for some time, even before like the movie started. So they'd been traveling for like probably like a few months
Right. Yeah, they said
that.
like in the beginning Taylor's in his log he says like, oh, it's been 6 months.
Yeah, and then like there was another 18 months that they were encapsulated before that. So
Right.
um,
Anyways, I think we're getting bogged by like the minutia and our and our theories. But yeah, so let's talk about the actual movie. I think it was great. I think the use of the national parks like Monument, the Monument Valley in Utah and what is it?
The beach was in like the end like beach area. That's in Malibu.
Right. But the initial desert, like part of like the Forbidden Zone,
Yeah.
there's a special thank you credit at the end to like the forest the forest department and the Department of the Interior, and they use like a lot of famous like deserts. Um, and it's funny because actually Westworld uses one of the locations. Like I think where they crashed, they crashed into the lake.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Westworld in season 2 they use that same location.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Uh, but I think this is a really great movie. Just a lot of great a lot of great shots. I think it was shot very competently and yeah. Oh yeah, and
Here's a,
with
first of all, I had to say, even for 1968, that costume design was fucking amazing.
yeah, yeah. I mean both like for the astronauts and the apes, and even well, I mean, uh, yeah, the humans were there just just kind of like neo caveman design, but
Right. But here's the other thing too, because this movie has you could see it as a couple of different important arguments that were, I think, going on around this time too. Is you have a lot of you could see like the racial kind of
yeah.
aspect of it, thinking that like, oh, humans are animals, like
Mm-hmm.
what good is it, and even though they have contradicting evidence of Commander Taylor, it's like, oh, it's just some trick, and like he's still like a he's still just an animal that's like mimicking us, um, and not thinking of him as a person in a
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
You have the idea, even among the ape societies, like because you have the orangutans who are kind of like the ruling class, the like the faith and science leaders. You have the chimps who are kind of doing their own thing, and then the gorillas are kind of um, like the warrior class, and they have like their own like. There's not really a bunch of crossing of those societies either. Um, Then you have the idea of religion versus science debate, and how you have Zero and Cornelius who are talking about like like oh well the like we think like that they see Commander Taylor as like this missing link, because they're kind of trying to put forth the evolution argument for
Mm-hmm.
science,
Right.
whereas you have dr.zaius is like, that's impossible, we were created by by God, and it was kind of it was kind of a very
But it was interesting
interesting.
though. But it's interesting is that Dr. Zaius was ahead of the academy, but also like kind of like their head cleric.
Right, yeah, he kind of he
He
played both
he
parts.
inhabited dual roles, which were contradictory because he was like, I'm a man of science, but then I'm also a defender of the sacred scriptures. It's like, well, you can't do that because what if one day science comes to you and show and I mean it does because in the proof of Commander Taylor, science says like no, you're wrong, or here's this evidence that contradicts what our our sacred text says. So how do you reconcile those two?
Right. Yeah. It's so there's a lot of like interesting just arguments, and just within the movie itself, and yeah, I like the dialogue is great. The story is just really great, and like how they put it all together, and you're trying to unravel this mystery, and like you're kind of on tense the entire time, because it's you're obviously, you want Commander Taylor to escape, but yeah, it's a lot of good directions that this movie went in.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, what is it? Yeah. Oh, I couldn't help but uh, make some or find some links to today and how like in the character of dr.zaius, how how he said that, how he pointed out that he was both like head scientist but also like head cleric. And nowadays, people, the new religion is science. And they said
Right.
like, and it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, they even say something. They even say like, oh, the science is settled. Apes came first. Um,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so, and like you kind of have, and then you can kind of like dovetail that or parallel that with our own society, where it's like, especially with like, the way people brandish science now, they, like the way they, they cling on to like their science textbooks is the same way that people used to cling on to their Bibles. And they have like this, and they have like the same utterances, especially specifically about climate change. It's like, well, the science is settled.
Right. And like any sort of uh, argument or questions asked are like, you're a denier.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, exactly. And I think they actually even, I think they even say that at a certain point, unless I'm misremembering, um, or like at the very least they call them heretics.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and Dr. Zira and Cornelius are constantly being threatened with heresy or
And exile,
an
almost like how
exile.
like the like Catholic Church would like exile like certain like members of the church if they disagreed with certain
Right,
things.
or they found like some of like their views heretical.
Right.
So yeah, again, kind of like the new religion. So in a way, yeah, I think Planet of the Apes was, either like prophesizing about what was going to happen, or or it was like a cautionary tale about how you know the way people saw like science as this new religion. And then it was personified within the character of Dr. Zaius, where he filled dual purposes as head scientist and as spiritual or religious leader.
Right. And later on in the film it's revealed that he actually like he knew certain truths that like other people didn't, yet
Mm-hmm.
was hiding it because it contradicted his uh the the worldview that he wanted to like kind of continue on
Right, or
in
like
that
at least or the worldview that was most advantageous to his species.
yeah, exactly. Because if people started to question his leadership and like what he had been teaching and all that, like it's more than likely that people would either not want him as their leader or that they would see him as something lesser than he was.
Right. Yeah. And interestingly enough, the speech that he gives about like, oh, humanity's uh, capacity for wonderment is goes hand in hand with its sense of or its cruelty. I don't know if you remember, but in the remake, the Tim Burton remake, which which Charlton Heston is in,
Right, I know. Yeah.
he gives that exact same speech uh, to
Because the Tim Burton is essentially a remake of the original, right?
right, right.
Okay.
But yeah, but I think in some ways, Tim Burton did improve on certain things, um, and I think one of them is that speech, um, and it's being told from a father to a son because the father actually knows like the secrets, uh, and I think it's delivered more powerfully.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Not to take away from like the original, but I don't know. I
I feel
think
like So maybe Tim Burton was a fan. Obviously, obviously he's probably a fan of
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes. But like he says, like one thing I would change is this part. I want to add a little bit more to this part.
Hmm. Right. I think. Well, not to talk too much about the remake, but I think it gave the character of Thade, who's like the who's the military leader, the extra push or the extra justification he needs um, to hunt down and kill the humans.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas in the '68 version, it was just more of you know uh, a cautionary warning from someone who you either lose respect for or never had respect for in the first place.
I see. Yeah.
Because in the figure of Dr.Zaius, because he says all these things about humanity. It's like, oh, their capacity for wonderment is only rivaled by their cruelty, and so it's like, well, dude, you're the one who's been lying to me this whole time. So how am I supposed to take you seriously? As opposed to in the remake, where it was it was the last words of a dying father to his son, warning him about humanity. They create these, they create marvels, but but it also goes hand in hand with their cruelty. And it's like we have to kill all the humans, and it's like
Right.
it's the spur that or the justification that the Thade character needs to hunt down and kill all the humans.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but just like yeah, that's the last bit of comparative comparison I'm gonna do. Uh,
What other like things like from like the movie, like certain characters, or like what else did you find interesting about the film, if any?
oh well, yeah, well we talked about it just before we started, and just what is it? Again, kind of, this is our term. This is our term. We coined it. The cinematic art. Yeah, the cinematic archaeology that we do here, and just the references from pop culture. Particularly in The Simpsons, and and for sure, Matt Groening is a Planet of the Apes fan.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Deep Space
but
Homer. Was it? I think a fish named Selma,
mhm,
which is where she marries Troy McClure,
right,
and countless other countless Treehouse of Horror episodes. You
right,
name.
and then the what is it? That one where Homer is a sideshow freak. I
Oh,
forget what that episode is.
I forget the
I
title of
forget
that
what the
episode,
title
but
is.
he becomes he travels around with the circus with like the Smashing Pumpkins and Peter
Yeah, for
Frampton and
Lollapalooza. Yeah, and one of the things he says, or he shouts out to the audience, is don't trust anyone over 30, and that is exactly what Commander Taylor says to Lucius, Dr. Zira's nephew.
right.
'Cause
And I had totally forgotten that line is in Planet of the Apes, and I was like, oh man, I thought that was just like a original Simpsons line, but no, it wasn't.
that's what I thought too, until until I saw Planet of the Apes. Not this time, but I watched Planet of the Apes
No, yeah,
prior,
I
but
don't
yeah,
know.
but my first introduction to that line was The Simpsons.
No, it's same here. And many of the other like Planet, like I said, I've seen Planet of the Apes without actually seeing Planet
Right. I
before
mean, yeah, and then
watching Planet of the Apes.
we all have in that case, because
Yeah.
we've seen it, either ripped off, parodied, or given homage to in other TV shows, movies, and other media. So
So,
yeah, so we've all seen that, but we just haven't seen it.
but yeah, specifically like The Simpsons, man, they use so many Planet of the Apes references, which is great. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, for whatever reason, like because I've seen Planet of the Apes quite a few times, and I totally like missed that. Yeah, like, don't trust anyone over 30 line from Commander Taylor,
Hmm.
and it's like, but this time I did notice it. I was like, wait a second, that was the reference from this movie. I don't know how I missed it.
Right. Yeah, and it was just, and he gives it to a young Lucius, again, Dr. Zera's nephew, and he kind of has like that, spark of rebellion in him because he's constantly, telling Taylor's like, don't tell me what to do, and kind of annoyed by Dr. Zaius. Um,
I think the other thing too is like the reason like I think Commander Taylor likes Lucius because he kind of in a way kind of reminds him of himself. He's very just like he questions authority and all this stuff, and
hmm
he was and I think that's what like yeah, don't trust anyone over 30, kid. And I mean obviously like Commander Taylor is kind of like the big character in this. Later on, Zira and Cornelius kind of become the main stars in a way. Um,
Right, because after he
not necessarily in the sequel, but in the three movies after that, they become like the big stars.
yeah, they became the main characters. 'Cause, more or less, Taylor's story is done. He has to live with the fact that he's back on Earth, and he has to somehow be able to reconcile with that fact. But
Right,
yeah,
and
but it's like, but then it becomes more about the how the ape society moves forward.
right, yeah, it's and actually the story gets very interesting. Because I when I first started watching Planet of the Apes, as a series, like because
Mm-hmm.
I had never I started watching this maybe about like 5 or 6 years ago, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I had no I mean I knew of Planet of the Apes, and I knew like they were having like some of the new ones, which I was skeptical about,
Mm-hmm.
but I was told you should watch them, and so I went. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm gonna watch through all the Planet of the Apes movies and then watch the new ones,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, like the sequels are actually pretty dang good.
Yeah, no. Yeah, even the first one, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was like all that great, but the subsequent movies, Dawn and War for the Planet of the Apes, I thought were amazing.
Right, I think like I said, and it's kind of the same with the sequels of Planet of the Apes that were done through I guess up into like the 80s. I think because I don't know how quickly they were coming out, but yeah, I mean they're not all like they don't compare as well to the original. Like they're like some of them are okay, but for the most part, it's like the story itself is actually pretty interesting, and
Mm.
it kind of builds into like how you get Caesar in
Right.
Rise of the Planet of the
Mm-hmm.
Apes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it's like, oh shit, that's like that's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but but the new ones, I think they do a lot. They did a lot better homages. Like in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, when Caesar is taken to the ape sanctuary, and the actor that plays Malfoy in Harry Potter,
Hmm.
his character's name is Julius, kind of like the gorilla, guard at the
Right, yeah.
and yeah, where there's that, and then in War for the Planet of the Apes, there's a young girl, who I think is starting to succumb to the simian flu because she can't talk, but the apes give her the name Nova because she
Yeah,
had
that's right. Yeah.
which because she had a Nova, emblem from like a Chevy Nova,
Yeah,
but then
right.
also paying homage to the original because the female companion for Commander Taylor was named Nova, or that was the name that he gave her.
Right, yeah. So it's all like very and oh, you know what yeah, it's pretty interesting like how that all the homages in the prequels to the original, and I don't know. I like I said, I think this is, well, it's easily Charlton Heston's most recognizable role.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's his best acting role, but I think
Right.
like
Yeah.
this is of all the movies that we've watched this month, this is my favorite.
Mm. Yeah. Fair enough. Out of the movies for this month, I would say Ben-Hur is my favorite.
Yeah, Ben-Hur is like a very close second, because I like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I was telling you before we started, is that Ben-Hur is definitely Charlton Heston's best acting performance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a great movie. I like it a lot. Obviously, I gave it a five-star review.
Right.
But this one is like just as an overall movie, and maybe because I'm a big sci-fi guy,
Mm-hmm.
this is my favorite of his films.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I have nothing else really to say about this movie. If you have anything to
Well,
add
I mean,
before we,
obviously we got to. I think we should, kind of finish up with talking about a little bit about the last scene, because that is like, kind of the important point of the movie, is that
right?
Commander
I
Taylor.
guess yeah, because especially since I guess we're having two different interpretations of that scene.
Right, and so Commander Taylor, breaks, escapes finally, um, and him and Nova escape, and they're running down the beach, and dr.zaius sends a warning. It's like, don't go searching for that stuff. You're not gonna like what you find, because
Mm-hmm.
he knows. I think he knows the truth, and he probably, I don't know how much further along the beach he got, but he discovers, you see him come up upon a giant, something, statue or something, from and he's like, gets off his horse, and he's like, damn you, god damn you to hell, you blew it up, and all, and there was actually a lot of controversy with that line. They were trying to cut it out for, or censor it, because they felt like it was a line that he was trying to um, use God's name in vain. But he was saying, it's like, no, this is a line that he would say. He's not using God's name in vain. He is shouting at the people who have come before him, that he's calling for God to damn them, for what they had done, for the evil that they had committed. Because obviously, what's revealed is that it's the Statue of Liberty, and that, like, in all, and he sees it as like, he's surprised, like, he's shocked that he's on Earth, and then two, it's like, they, all the things that he feared from society, I think, in his time, came to pass. They actually did, because this is, like the 70s, so you're thinking like Cold War, and obviously there's a lot of tension between the United States, the Soviet Union, and Commander Taylor's kind of a malcontent and hates society, and like, he kind of hates the he sees the problems that, like, the politics and everything that in from his time, which is why he goes on this journey. And surprising that he comes all the way back to Earth, and that the things that he feared were going to come true do. And that's why he's damning them all to hell, because, like, you blew up the planet, you ruined it, and now he's in this situation that he's in.
Hmm. Right, and well, okay, because now you're making it sound like you it's more of like the same interpretation that I had. Um,
But see, no, I think like all of that realization came in this final scene,
mm-hmm.
and not that, because all this time I don't think that he knew that he was on, planet Earth. I think
Right. I
that he
mean,
thought he
just
was on
the
some other
scene
planet.
prior when he was like going through the artifacts. He even said like, "Oh, this, even though I never met this man, I think, I could have known him, but I don't think he was talking about like, oh, I knew this was Earth, but more like, this, I guess humanity evolved, on this planet too, and they, kind of came up with the same inventions to help them out, like glasses or false teeth or a replacement valve for the heart. Um,
Well, and that's in part of the reason also too why a I'm going based off of what I see from the film,
mhm,
but then you even have like some of the references to Planet of the Apes, especially in The Simpsons, where in the episode Deep Space Homer, when it's like he's talking about like space travel and stuff, it's like hopefully we don't end up on that horrible Planet of the Apes. Wait a second, Statue of Liberty. Wait, that was our planet, and he starts doing the whole Commander Taylor line,
mhm.
on stage,
Right.
and it's like, and so even like the references are showing that like it was that was the shocking moment where it's like he realized that he had come all the way back to Earth despite obviously it was 2,500 some years in the future, and that was never the intention. Like they thought he just thought he had made it to some other Earth like planet.
Okay. Yeah, but still, my interpretation was completely different. Was that, because he was, this misanthropic kind of person and a malcontent, and he didn't like anything, um, about the society that he left. But coming face to face with the realization that he was back onto that planet, I think, um, what is it? I think,
I think the other part too is like you look at it even from the beginning, like why Commander Taylor is kind of acting like an asshole towards his the other people in his crew. It's like he's laughing at the guy at was it Landon when he's placing the flag in memory of the female astronaut,
mhm.
and the reason is like not only are we not in the same, like all those people are dead, but we're not even on the same planet, and so he's kind of like laughing. It's like, why are you holding on to this stuff anymore? Like it doesn't matter. We're on
Right. But I
we're on.
think, yeah, but with the realization that that it was no longer uh, that everything he knew was. I mean, I think I think it's one of those things where like the him like theoretically knowing that it was gone and actually knowing that it was gone. I think it was like too much for him to bear, and that's why he had the reaction that he did. Not necessarily because he was back in the same plate. He was back on Earth, but it's just the realization that it's like, man, like it's really gone. Like it's not a question of like it's likely gone, but now it's like for sure gone, and just like the shock of knowing that everything that he knew and or that he even though he loathed it was gone was just it was like such a huge shock that it was that it was in the moment just incomprehensible to him.
Yeah, I I see how you arrived at that idea. I'm not, and like I said, you could be right. I don't know. I'm just going based off of how I understood the movie.
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm just putting laying out my case
I
for
see. Okay.
for
Yeah,
my
that makes sense.
interpretation. I'm not saying that mine is right and yours is wrong. I'm just saying this is my
Yeah, I
interpretation.
see. I definitely see how you arrived at your idea, though.
Mm, right.
But see, that's it. That's why I like movies like this, because now we can. That's a it's something to discuss.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Then I think definitely we should do a we should do a move. I don't know about you, but or I don't know if you know of any, but like uh, we should do ambiguous ending movies.
Oh yeah, that might be a good one. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, there's several of those that I can think of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one I was particularly thinking of was Shutter Island.
Shutter Island, Inception.
Mm-hmm.
There, yeah, we could do something like that.
Yeah, because I remember when it initially came out, my friend was saying like, well, not to give too much away, he was more of the opinion of like what you're shown. I mean, have
Right.
you've seen Shutter Island, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Several times.
he was of the opinions like, um, yeah, the main characters, everything that these other characters were saying, and and that's it. Where I don't necessarily argue against that, but I do see an alternative ending, um, in that just because of the last thing you see on the screen.
I might have, you know what? I'm gonna have to go back and watch that, like just
Mm-hmm.
because. Yeah, it does kind of. There's. I have more questions on the film. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, and
Um,
I've watched a lot of video essays on YouTube of people like kind of giving their 2 cents, and it's always kind of how my friend saw it.
right.
There's like one or two that kind of play devil's advocate and either gives an alternative or something similar to what I believe, or one of my own theories.
Mhm.
But it's always usually kind of like, yeah, that's kind of how like what they present at the end is just like, yeah, that's what it is. But I think there's enough evidence to be like, just like, oh, I think it could also be this thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Again, and I know that might be been confusing for some people, but I don't want to, I don't really want to talk about it yet because if we're gonna
You don't want
actually
to give
do
it
it,
away right
yeah, I
now.
don't want to
Yeah.
give it away. Yeah.
All right then.
All right then. Yeah, let's give our reviews and let's give our ratings and wrap this up.
Well, I already kind of gave it away a little bit, but this is a 5-star movie for me, personally. Because, like I said, I can't say that like I like this more than Ben-Hur,
Mm-hmm.
and then a movie that I gave a 5-star review for, and then not give this one 5 stars. So
Right.
I got to go 5 stars.
All right. Um, you know what? I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna give this a 5 star.
Yeah, as like I said, you look. The acting is great. The costume design is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the like I said, we have a couple different thoughts on like the ending, which I always think is like kind of good because it's not like, oh god, this is such a stupid ending. It's like you want to talk about it more and think about it.
Right.
And I mean,
Yeah,
obviously,
it's
like
not like,
there
and it's not like the Ryan Johnson school of thought where it's like, I want 50% of people to hate it. I want 50% of the people to love it.
exactly like
It.
it's the dumbest. I hate that so much.
It is. It's this. It's the stupidest thing. Like, why would you want to split fan base?
Yeah, it's like I would rather have everyone like my movie, but I also but I leave them something to think about. Like I don't hand them all the information. I leave some things ambiguous so that like you can have there's different theories or interpretations. I mean, look at all there's several of Stanley Kubrick's films are like that. A lot of the Christopher Nolan films are like that, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
and they're great films that a lot of people like. Yet there's several different theories that people kind of discuss still about
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. All right. That is our review for Planet of the Apes. Both Robert and I give this a 5 star. One of the rare times we give this a perfect score.
Yeah,
Um,
it's this is one of the greatest sci-fi franchises out there.
right, and this is like one of the most influential science fiction movies in the history of the world, cinema, um,
I think
you
outside of
name
like
it.
Star Wars, I think this is probably one of the at least referentially, it
Mm-hmm.
is probably the most you know influential films, sci-fi films.
Yes. Yeah, that is. Yeah. After Star Wars. But yeah, absolutely. Although even though I think Lucas did categorize this more as fantasy, space fantasy, as opposed to like purely science fiction.
I guess I could see that. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with him. I think
Right.
that's not a bad way to put this.
Right, because science fiction is a lot about the technology and how it like kind of how humanity is either benefited by or hindered by science fiction or the technology, as opposed to
Right.
Star Wars, where the technology is there, but it's very much in the background and not given an explanation to. Like no one knows. I mean, outside of like the expanded universe stuff, no one is told how a lightsaber works. It just works and it's just there.
So then, technically, like science fiction wise, you'd have Star Trek, which I think that is pretty much like a science fiction show, movies, what have
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Where,
yeah, yeah.
but like Star Wars and Planet of the Apes are more space fantasy.
Probably, yeah.
I actually
I mean,
that I think
I would have said that Planet of the Apes is science fiction because it does talk about well, it does it does talk about technology and how it either and at least in the original one, it did show like the detriment of technology and that of nuclear weapons, on humanity.
Okay, well,
So I would still call it science fiction.
okay. Well, that's a different discussion for a different day, I
Right.
guess.
Right. And plus, like with the prequels, I think those are definitely science fiction because again, it talks about technology, and how it affects, and it definitely does affect humanity.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay.
Yeah. But again, both Robert and I give this a 5. Definitely watch this movie. It should definitely be in everyone's personal watch lists.
Oh, yeah, damn straight.
Yeah. Yeah, notwithstanding the reason of Charlton Heston, who's a mighty fine actor, and someone who shares our birthday. So, all right, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. I hope you had a good time. I certainly did I had a good time, and I think Robert had a good time
I had a great time.
as always.
Well, I had McRibs before I started, so like it was just
I know, so you're like blissed out right now, right?
joy overload.
Yeah. All right. Yes, but don't forget to join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. ish, sometimes live. Don't forget to check out the library of other shows. Circle of Jigs main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Robert's gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts. Twitter's at PodcastCOJ and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all that said, we'll see you next time. And don't do anything I would.